So Ashes Creation had a big live stream today with a bunch of updated news regarding the upcoming Alpha 2 test, as well as an AMA with Steven Sharif. So let's go ahead and jump into it. It was a pretty long live stream. I'll try to condense it down to just a few minutes, as well as keep the information relevant to Alpha 2, since I know that's what most people care about. So first up, some Alpha 2 server information. It looks like at the start of Alpha 2, we're going to be limited to 3,000 players per server, or realm as they're calling them, and this will gradually increase to that 10,000 player goal they have as we progress through the alphas and possibly the betas leading into live launch. And these 3,000 players will initially be spread out over 55 square kilometers of land. For context, the current New World map is about 40 square kilometers, so at the very start of Alpha 2, we're already getting a bigger map than the current New World map. And this Alpha 2 map is scheduled to increase quite dramatically as the Alpha 2 progresses. And next up, we got the long-awaited Alpha 2 date, and I do mean long-awaited. So many of us have waited years to hear this date, and it looks like it's scheduled to start on October 25th of 2024. Now initially, when it starts in October, it's only going to be playable on weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, until about December 20th, when we're going to move into a 5-day-a-week testing schedule, Monday through Friday, and that's going to last all the way until May 1st, 2025, at which point it'll be up 24/7, and then we'll be going into the betas and the live launch. So from about May forward of next year, you can expect to play this game like an actual game. And next up, they told us the Alpha 2 update pace that they're aiming for. It looks like we're going to get hot fixes as necessary, a minor update every 3 weeks, and a major update every 6 weeks. I think this is a beautiful pace, and it even coincides with their internal update schedule, so it should be pretty consistent. Now before we get into the actual content of Alpha 2, they did announce that you can once again purchase Alpha 2 keys starting August 21st at 11 a.m. Pacific. There's 3 separate keys you can purchase, and they each have a different price and a different start date. The most expensive key is $120, and this will grant you access to the entire Alpha 2 starting on November 8th, 2024. So about 2 weeks after the Alpha 2 officially begins. This is still only the weekend phase, so it might be recommended to skip this if you want to play a little more than that. The next tier is $110, and this will grant you access starting from December 20th onwards, at which point you can play Monday through Friday, and the cheapest tier is $100, but this won't grant you access until May 1st, 2025. So that is quite a wait. But they are considerable savings when you consider that me and everyone else I know paid at least $250 to get into this test, so it is a great deal, and I'm happy they did bring them back for those who are just finding out about the game. And if you haven't yet signed up for an account on Ashes of Creation, consider using my link in the description down below. It's completely free unless you purchase anything, and it helps support the channel, so I appreciate it. And just to reiterate, because so many people, including me, were confused by this graphic, if you buy the first key, you get access to the entire Alpha 2. If you buy the second key, the $110 key, you get access to the entire Alpha 2 starting from December 20th. And if you buy the third key, the $100 key, you get access to the entire Alpha 2 starting from May of next year. This was a poorly made graphic, I will admit that. So, moving on to the actual content of Alpha 2. It looks like at the start we are only going to be getting 3 races. Sadly, no Dunir at the start, but it will be added later in the coming waves of Alpha 2. We're only getting Vec, Kalar, and Empyrean at the very start. So, like I said, a 55 square kilometer map. We're going to be getting all of the Riverlands, a little bit of the Sand Squall Deserts, and a little bit of the Tropics to the west of the Riverlands. This was a beat on my personal expectations. I was only expecting the Riverlands and a little bit of the desert, so getting some Tropics thrown in there is incredible. The Tropics is the area that they played during Alpha 1, so it's going to be very interesting to see how that's updated over time. We're getting 5 nodes at level 3, which is the village stage, and some of these nodes are going to be using tier 4 systems. So that is also going to be very interesting to test out. We're going to get all 6 archetypes that we've seen in showcases so far: Tank, Cleric, Fighter, Ranger, Bard, and Mage, and Rogue and Summoner will be added in later waves of Alpha 2. It's also worth noting for PvP lovers, it looks like right at the start of Alpha 2 you're getting pretty much fully functional PvP systems and multiple different PvP game modes, including Guild Wars, Node Wars, Caravan PvP events, and flagging. There's also lawless zones if you're interested in that sort of thing. And for those who don't PvP, you are protected to some extent, as Steven himself said the corruption system is working as intended right now. So this is all around good news. From the systems and economy section of this image, it looks like we're getting flying, water, and ground mounts right at the start of Alpha 2. I'm personally very excited to try out the flying mounts because if you know anything about Ashes, flying mounts are going to be so rare in-game that very likely the only time you're going to be using one is during this testing period. So use one while you're in there. Don't waste your chance. It looks like it's going to be beautiful on Unreal Engine 5.3. There's so much other content in this section to go through, but we have to keep it moving, so pause the video if you want to read the whole thing. But the highlights are there's 38 unique huntable animals, over 400 unique processing recipes, over 600 unique crafting recipes right at the start, as well as we're getting gear enchantments and a raid and party maker right at the start. That is impressive. Also at the top you can see we're getting 1 grand dungeon, and I think it was 4 pocket dungeons. Yeah, 4 pocket dungeons. We're also getting 149 quests right from the start, as well as 3 world bosses and a bunch of other stuff. This is only the first phase of Alpha 2, and this is going to be going until December 20th. So we'll move on to the December 20th update now. And December 20th is when the Alpha 2 map is set to explode. We don't know by how many square kilometers, but we know we're getting an expansion to the Sand Squaw Desert and to the tropics. If that's the rest of those biomes, it could explode by a massive amount, nearly doubling or tripling in size. We're getting 2 brand new node layouts, which coincides with the new races we're getting, considering we're getting the Veyloon and the Dunir. If you don't know, the most prominent race that helps build up a node is the aesthetic that that node will develop, and each race has their own unique aesthetic, which I think is really cool. I'm most excited for the Dunir, man. I don't know what it is. I love playing dwarfs in MMOs. December 20th is also when the Rogue is scheduled to be added to Alpha 2, and you can see right below that they're accompanying it with dual-wielding daggers, as well as a 2-handed axe, a 2-handed mace, and scepters. This is also when animal husbandry will be introduced into Alpha 2, which is sort of the animal breeding system in Ashes of Creation, which has unfathomable depth. I mean, if you took biology, you remember Mendelian genetics with the Punnett squares and stuff like that. That is pretty much what's going to be brought into this game. And it's expected that the metas are going to be so complex when it comes to this that no guides are going to help you. Sure, there's going to be guidelines, but you're not really going to know what you have or what you're trying to get. There's so much more content to go over in these slides, but in the interest of time, I will keep it moving to the final phase of Alpha 2, Phase 3, which is scheduled to begin on approximately May 1st, 2025. It looks like we're getting 2 new zones added, the Turquoise Sea and the Anvils, which are 2 more massive zones, and this is also when the naval aspect of this game will be introduced. You will be able to sail the seas as well as partake in underwater combat starting in this phase. And when this phase starts in 2025, it's going to be the first time in over 4 years that we've seen anything on the Divine nodes. They're going to be added to the game. Those are the religious nodes for this game. I did ask a question to Steven on the Ashes of Creation forums for the Q&A that happened today, but they chose to ignore it, probably intentionally, but we have such little details on the Divine nodes that I am personally very excited for that in this stage. And it also looks like we're getting the final 4 races added to the game, which are the Pyre, the Tolnar, the Renkai, and the Nakua. And we're getting the final archetype, the Summoner, added as well. So that completes all 9 races and all 8 archetypes, and this is a solid ending point for the Alpha 2 leading into the betas to start. We're also getting some secondary archetype specialization for Cleric and Tank, and it makes a ton of sense that they would choose to only introduce secondary archetype specialization for these 2 archetypes, because otherwise they probably would not be tested properly. Don't lie to me and say that you would test a double tank archetype or a double tank class. I know a lot of people wouldn't, so I think it's very smart for them to add this here. We're also getting new weapons. There is a typo, it says 2 new weapons, but there is actually 4. I'm not sure what a one-handed sword pierce is, potentially a rapier of some sorts. That's maybe a long dagger, I don't know. But we're also getting like a one-handed axe, a little battle axe, and an orb for the mages. I'm not sure if that's going to be a 2-handed weapon or an offhand weapon. I thought the spellbook was going to be an offhand weapon, but in the Bard showcase you saw it is a floating 2-handed weapon. So who knows what the orb is going to be. Like I said earlier, it looks like we're getting the naval system, as well as religion for the divine nodes, and a bunch of content for the Turquoise Sea. The open waters are not just open waters in this game, they are a region. They're going to have their own dynamic events, their own story arcs, their own treasure maps, their own dungeons, stuff like that. We're also going to be getting dynamic world dungeons added to the game, as well as instanced content if you look under the systems tab of this image. So phase 3, I mean, you're going to be able to play 24/7 at this time. The servers will not be going down, and potentially they will even be 10,000 player servers. May of next year is going to be insane, dude. But man, I'll be honest with you guys, the Q&A section of this live stream really did suck. It seemed like they chose the questions before making the graphics for this video, or the two teams didn't talk to each other, because they chose a lot of questions that were answered in great detail during the breakdowns on the live stream. This is one of the decent questions. Somebody asked, can we get an update on when the character creator tool will be available? This was also covered during the live stream, but Steven reiterated, we are not getting the character creator before Alpha 2 starts anymore. It will be introduced at the same time as Alpha 2. Apparently there's some pretty buggy results, and they're just going to use this time to fix it instead of giving it to us early, which is fine, but I really would like to create my character so I don't have to do it on day one once I log in, because I'm just going to randomize and go now. I was looking forward to a character preset, but oh well, is what it is. Not that big of a deal. And that pretty much concludes the condensed breakdown of today's live stream. I hope I was able to save you a little bit of time. Consider clicking like and subscribe before you head out, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and very soon in the game.